I want to give a special shout out to my patrons, to my Bibliosprand, Bibliosworn, and Bibliomancers. Thank you so much for supporting my hobby and passion even more. It means a lot to me. Hi everyone, Petrik here. It's been a while since I made a why you should read video. I think the last one was for the Greenbone Saga by Fondali. But today's video, because I just finished my second read of the Riyria Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan, so today's video will be a why you should read the Riyria Revelations. Basically, every good things that I've said about the Riyria Revelations still checks out, but there's a few additional notes. All of them are positive after my second read. There are times when the principle to not DNF a book or a series must be upheld, and the Riyria Revelations is one of those times. I truly believe that a story sometimes need a few volumes to reach their maximum potential. The Riyria Revelations is a perfect example of this situation. It's a series that proved that sticking to this principle can bring marvelous results. If I haven't stuck with this series after finishing the first omnibus, which I found to be underwhelming on my first read, I would be missing one heck of an amazing series, because the Riyria Revelations now has become one of my favorite series of all time. And the Riyria Revelation is not a flawless series, but overall the positive elements of the series definitely triumph over the negatives by far. For me, it is not a surprise that many readers recommend the Riyria Revelations as an excellent series to those who feel intimidated or looking to get into adult fantasy. It's an accessible and entertaining series, and it would be appropriate to say that the Riyria Revelations comes with a step-by-step storytelling structure. Michael J. Sullivan wrote this series to help his daughter cope with dyslexia, and his writing motivation resulted in a high fantasy series that can be enjoyed by almost every readers of all ages, from young to adult readers. The story in the Riyria Revelations begins light-heartedly, and there were times I was indeed worried that the series wouldn't click with me. Fortunately, Sullivan did a wonderful job of increasing the tension of the plot throughout the series. More vital things were at stake with each passing volume, and at the same time, this also made the quality of the narrative better for me. I like to think of the level of accessibility in Sullivan's storytelling structure in the series to be similar to the way a parent or a friend accompanies your coming-of-age journey. Once again, if you're new to adult fantasy, there is no need to worry here. Sullivan guides his reader step by step into adult high fantasy literature. Let's look at it this way. Think of Theft of Swords as your kindergarten middle school life, then Rise of Empire as your high school to college or university, and finally Heir of Novron as your adulthood. In Theft of Swords, the plot was simple. A lot of friends are willing to help you with your problems. During this period of time, you also start making friends, and these friends might be together with you or not in your high school, which brings us to Rise of Empire. In Rise of Empire, you start to learn about the meaning of real friendship, and if you're lucky, you might make friends that last a lifetime. You tell each other your past interests, or in the case of the series, it's where Royce and Hadrian's past was revealed gradually. But you've come to recognize that life isn't as easy as your childhood. Maybe not instantly, but there's this gnawing feeling that life is not a smooth road. You are guaranteed to make mistakes, you will have regret, and you will experience loss. Some of your friends will either stick by your side or, unfortunately, leave or sometimes even betray you. Eventually, we arrive at Heir of Novron, the moment of adulthood. These are moments where everything from your past plays a role in your personality and life. You cannot go back, and mistakes from your past will catch up to you. You have to face them. The Riyria Revelations consists of 3 omnibus: the Theft of Swords, Rise of Empire, and finally the final one is the Heir of Novron. The Heir of Novron consists of the 2 best books in the entire series, Wintertide and Persepliquis. Seriously, rating-wise, I'm giving a rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars to Wintertide on my first read. On my second read, I'm upgrading it to 5 out of 5 stars. As for Persepliquis, it's without a doubt a full 5 out of 5 stars rating. I would give more if I could. Following the tradition of my reviews for the series, this review wouldn't be completed without me including a painting illustrated by Mark Simonetti for anything in the Riyria series. If you haven't checked Simonetti's work yet, do yourself a favor and do it. Mark Simonetti is one of my favorite artists, and if you check his portfolio, you will see that he has bestowed his gifts to a lot of highly acclaimed fantasy series such as A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, Mistborn Trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, The Kingkiller Chronicle by Petrik, and more. I truly hope that the US or UK edition of the Riyria Revelations and the first 2 books in the Riyria Chronicles will receive a cover art done by him one day. The one that they have right now doesn't do the series justice. On my second read, I love Theft of Swords, and I also love Rise of Empire. I think both of these omnibus, especially Theft of Swords, improved significantly on my second read. As for the Heir of Novron, which consists of again Wintertide and Persepliquis, I absolutely loved them. So many pivotal events and developments occurred within these two books, and the Heir of Novron works superbly as a culmination to everything that began since the Crown Conspiracy. The series is intentionally written or structured with the purpose that readers can receive the most rewarding experience in the final omnibus, and Sullivan has succeeded terrifically on this. The storyline was thoroughly engaging, the twists and turns both surprising and also believable, and the character's background was well realized. The legends and lores were also intriguing, and whether you were able to see the tales being weaved and foreshadowed since the beginning of the series or not, I do have faith that the revelations in the last 100 pages of the Heir of Novron will guarantee its readers immensely satisfying fulfillment for reading the series to its completion. At the beginning of the series, I used to think that friendship would be the only main theme of the series, but as I read through the series to the end, I've come to realize that it's not that simple. Yes, friendship is still one of the main themes, but it's definitely not the only one. There is more to it than that. There is love, justice, legacy, virtue, and most importantly, I think the Riyria Revelations is a story about seeking redemption no matter what kind of past you have. It's also about having your loyalty and bond of friendship tested to its limit, and to always have hope, not only during the good times, but more importantly, to have hope during the bad times. Like this quote from the book: "A beautiful day might bring disaster, while a day that begins trapped inside an ancient tomb might be the best one of your life. If you don't abandon hope on pleasant days, why do so on those that begin poorly?" I have mentioned in my review of Tap of Swords that I initially found Royce and Hadrian's characterizations to be flat there. But as I make my way through the series, I have become so attached to them now that they felt like real friends to me. Their friendship and loyalty towards each other were wholesome, inspiring, and incredible to read, and the action sequences involving the duo in the last books were magnificently executed. This was especially evident during the climax sequences of both Wintertide and Persepliquis. One thing of note though, although it's often recommended to start reading Royce and Hadrian's journey by reading the Riyria Revelations first, I had a feeling I will love Royce and Hadrian even more and get attached to them much faster if I've read the Riyria Chronicles before I read the Tap of Swords. A lot of events mentioned in this series that shaped their friendship have transpired in the past. I'm confident that if I have started by reading the Riyria Chronicles, I will end up loving this duo more than I already did. And on my reread, it really happened. Royce and Hadrian displayed friendship that will stand the test of time, and because I've read the Riyria Chronicles before my reread, I can attest to this notion even further. And the extraordinary characters aren't exclusive to Royce and Hadrian. Myron and the female characters in this series were characters that I highly adored. I'm serious, Arista, Trace, or Modena are some of the best female characters that I've read in fantasy genre. Their development throughout the course of the series was staggering, and if you look back to their first appearances in the first omnibus, then you will comprehend just how outstanding their growth throughout the series is. Additionally, it's heartwarming really to know the trivia that Sullivan wrote the compelling female characters of the series based on his wife, as stated in the beginning of the Heir of Novron omnibus. This book is entirely dedicated to my wife, Robin Sullivan. Some have asked how it is I write such strong women without resorting to putting swords in their hands. It is because of her. She is Arista, she is Trace, she is Modena, she is Amelia, and she is my Gwen. This series has been a tribute to her. This is your book, Robin. I hope you don't mind that I put down in words how wonderful life is while you're in the world. And I'm really grateful that I had a chance to chat with both Michael Sullivan and also Robin Sullivan. So finally, time to answer the question that I've been asked repeatedly for years. Will I recommend this series? Without a doubt, yes. However, please make sure that your expectations are set accordingly. It will do you a favor to remember that the Riyria Revelation is an enormously well-loved series. But one thing that the fans often neglect to mention is that this is a series that keeps on getting better with each book. You will find the true greatness of the series by the final omnibus on your first read. When I first started reading the series, I approached it with the wrong mindset because the fans constantly told me two things. First, the Riyria Revelations contains the best duo in fantasy. To be fair, they weren't exactly mistaken on this. I did end up praising Royce and Hadrian as one of the best bromance in fantasy, but I wish I had known that I would agree with them only after I've read the final omnibus. Remember, it did take me 3 books in the series for me to feel fully immersed and invested with the characters. As I said, I have a feeling I should have read the Riyria Chronicles first when I first read through this. On my second read of the entire series after having read the Riyria Chronicles, my experience improved significantly. The second claim, the Riyria Revelations, is one of the most epic fantasy series out there, and for this one, I have to disagree. Although high fantasy and epic fantasy are often categorized as the same subgenre, I personally think of epic fantasy as a fantasy series with huge scope and massive scale battles. This was what I expected to appear in the Riyria Revelations, but there were practically none. As a series, the Riyria Revelations is definitely a brilliant high fantasy series with friendship and character development that will charm its readers. If you're looking for a fantasy series that feels familiar and also modern at the same time, accompanied by a grand adventure and an immensely satisfying ending, you can't go wrong with choosing the Riyria Revelations. As a concluding volume, the Heir of Novron is close to perfection. I did find one character's major revelation behind his actions in the last book to be highly illogical, but that's quite likely the intention. And even though some of the revelations were predictable, they were still, nevertheless, thrilling and delightful to read. Trust me on this, if you end up loving the series right from the first omnibus, you are in the presence of a new favorite series to add to your list. But if you find yourself in the same situation as I did the first time I read through it, meaning that you end up disliking the first book, do not let it discourage you yet. There is a high possibility it won't stay that way by the end of the series, or even from the second omnibus. So yes, you definitely should read the Riyria Revelations. You should give this a try. My journey with the series can be summed up as tremendously worthwhile. It was honestly one of the most rewarding reading experience I've ever had, whether on my first read or on my second read. And respectfully speaking, I hope there won't be a sequel series to this one. This is not because I don't want to read any more stories in the world of Elan. This is not the case. I will read the prequel series, like the Legends of the First Empire and also the Rise and Fall trilogy. But it's more because the ending written in the Heir of Novron was already so beautifully wrapped up and utterly satisfying as it is. I just don't think a better conclusion for these characters could ever be achieved. But that's just my opinion. At the end of the day, I just want to say thank you so much to Michael J. Sullivan for writing this exceptional series. Although it feels bittersweet, I must part with Royce, Hadrian, and all the characters again. I have no doubt that I will be revisiting them again in the future. In my next visit, it will be after I finish the Legends of the First Empire and also the Rise and Fall trilogy. So yes, I truly love the Riyria Revelations. I loved it on my first read and I loved it even more on my second read. So yeah, that's it for me today. Let me know if you have read this series or not, and if you have read it, what do you think about this series? And if you have not, do you plan to read this series someday? As always, thank you so much for watching my videos and thank you for your support. Bye bye.